Hello everyone, this is Cruz Salinas with UTRGV Sara. Today we'll be talking about how to maintain and plant your raised bed garden. We're going to have 4 topics. Our first topic will be on your timers. Our second topic will be on the drip irrigation system. Then we'll talk about what plants to plant, and our fourth topic will be the plant spacing. In this community garden, we have 2 different timers. We have timer A and timer B. They're basically the same, but there is a little differences as far as how to set them. On timer A, you set the clock by moving your knob to the set indicator, and with your plus or minus, you either raise your time or lower your time. To set your start time when you want to start your irrigation system, you change your knob to your start time. It's the same way. If you want to start at 6, you want to start at 7 or 8, you just move it up or move it down. How long you want to water goes to your next indicator. This all depends on Mother Nature and the stage of the plants. If the stage of the plants is young, you want a longer time of watering with a more often setting. If your plants are bigger, you want a long time of setting with a long space in between. So in this case, we want to set the time at 60 minutes. How often has a few selections. Here's where you determine how often you water. It has 6 hours, 12 hours, once a day, every 2 days, every 4 days, once a week, and so forth, so on. As I mentioned earlier, what determines how long and how often is Mother Nature. If it's been raining a lot, you don't need to water as often. If it's been dry and windy, you need to water pretty often. Set your clock at auto and you're done. On this timer, it's almost basically the same, except it has 2 different knobs. Okay? To set the time, you have your set button, you press it and your clock moves. Your set start is when you want to start. You just press your button and it goes to the time that you want to start watering. As far as your start time intervals, you have, with this timer, you have a 2-hour, a 4-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour, once a day, twice a day, all the way up to 7 days. With this knob, you have the selection of your time, your duration, which is 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 60 minutes, or 2 hours, and so forth, so on. As far as maintenance is concerned with your timer, the only thing that you have to be checking is that your batteries are fully charged. Once they go dead, of course, your system will not work and it will not water your raised bed. The maintenance on your drip irrigation system is pretty simple. The only thing that you have to watch for is leaks, and they will happen when you're either planting or you're here cleaning your raised bed with a hoe or with a shovel, or a pest comes and makes a hole in your drip irrigation line. You will have a leak. Always come out here and test it so that you can make sure that the operation is fine. In this case, I'm turning it on, I'm putting it on manual so that I can check for any leaks. And as you see, I have one right here. And I will be showing you how to repair that leak. First, you mark where the leak's at, turn your system off, get a pair of scissors, cut that piece off, and here is an adapter coupler, and this is what will repair that leak. If you need some of these, just ask Robert Cantu for some of these. We do have some spare ones in our storage shed over there. This coupler has 2 nuts. They turn clockwise and counterclockwise. When you're going to install it, you want to make sure they're all the way in, okay? Then you're going to insert the barb part into your drip irrigation. Then you're going to get your other side and install it. Then you're going to turn your nuts clockwise and counterclockwise, and then tighten them. Okay? To determine if you did this right, just turn your system back on, and if you have leaks, you didn't repair it right, go ahead and try again, and if it doesn't leak, you're done. Your system is on. There we go. I often get asked, how long do I water and how much do I water? I have one simple rule of thumb. If you take your soil and you squeeze it and it just water drips out, you're watering way too much. If you take your soil and you squeeze it and it just falls apart, you're not watering enough. If you take your soil and you squeeze it and it holds together, that's just right. The next most popular question, I guess, is, what do I plant? Of course, the season dictates on what plants we're going to be putting out this time of the year. It being early fall, we want to plant plants that are going to go straight into winter. We're talking about cauliflower, broccoli, lettuce, some Swiss chard. I do have some tomato plants out here. That is not a fall crop, but we have had some success in the past where we have had some mild winters and we have been able to harvest some tomatoes up into October. And we can also protect them by using some kind of plastic cover on them over the mild winter. Today we're going to be planting cauliflower, red romaine lettuce, we have Swiss chard, and cabbage. The other question that I get asked is, what spacing do I use? Of course, that's going to determine on the actual plant that you are planting. One of the big misconceptions that we have is when we have, let's say, a cabbage is this big at the grocery store, so we space out our plants, say, every 6 inches. Well, the actual plant of a cabbage is actually about this big. The actual plant of a lettuce is this big. At the grocery store, all you're seeing is the actual heads of these plants. Same with broccoli. When you purchase the broccoli, all you do is purchase the broccoli head, but the actual plant is pretty big, so you have to space accordingly. Rule of thumb, most of these plants are what everybody has known it as square foot garden. You get your garden and you square it out into 1 foot squares, and that really determines where you're going to lay out your plants. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. That's 12 inches, this is 12 inches, this is 12 inches, and this is 12 inches. So in this little area here, I have 3, 6, 9, 12 square feet. So I'm actually going to plant 12 plants. All these plants will be growing to when they're full size and cover that area. And also what that does is, by doing this, it also suppresses the weeds and you have weed control. You do not want to plant them real close together because then they start fighting each other for nutrition and space. Here in just a little bit, I don't know if you can catch this or not, but here was some plants of okra planted, and here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plants in one little area. The plants look gorgeous. They're up and growing but they don't have any fruit. And that's basically what happens. One thing that does happen was you will get a nice plant, but you won't get any fruit production. Now, when we're planting, for the most part, you want to dig a hole and you want to plant your transplant flush with what your plant comes in out of your pot. So we'll dig a hole, set it in that hole, and then press it lightly. Now, one thing that you can do also for the sake of space is, even though, now I'm not even using the shovel, this is the best way to plant anything. Even though we have a square foot there, to take full advantage of this small piece, I'm going to bring this plant to the edge so that it can have this area. And I'm going to bring this plant there so that it can have that area. By doing so, I'm able to squeeze another plant in, and still they're not fighting each other for it. And there we have it. Now, when it comes to tomatoes, they use the 1 foot square gardening with their tomatoes also. And that's a big no-no, because the actual tomato plant usually grows, if it's a bush plant, will actually grow 2 feet by 2 feet square. So it needs a lot of room. So in this case, we'll just be putting 2. But even though this is not 2 feet, I'm going to take advantage of this being out on the edge so my plant can be out here. Now, tomato plants are one of the few plants that you can trim it a little bit, just pinch some of the leaves off, and you can actually plant it that deep if you have windy conditions or your plant doesn't look all that nice, and it might, if you have a thin stem and it might fall over, just trim it. In this instance, you'll be digging the hole a little bit deeper, and you'll be covering your plant like so. Of course, you can go just to the base, but I'm going to go ahead and trim it a little bit. And set it, that way it's nice and strong. Now this plant will actually cover this area right in here. And get your trellises and trellis them up. Now we're going to be planting you'll be planting some plants like onions, some leeks that come in bunches. They don't grow that big. They don't need that square foot gardening. They actually just need one nice row. Okay? In this instance, you just make a little furrow with your hand. Since the leek will grow approximately that big, that tall, I'm going to plant 2 rows. Now this is normally how you get your leeks, your small onions, and so forth, so on. But if you notice, there's probably about 50 plants in this container. If you were to just take it apart, you might damage a lot of this roots. Nice little trick is get you a cup of water or a bowl of water and dip it in there, soak it real well, get you a little tray, and then just start separating them. As you notice, I mean, it literally fell apart. I'm going to space them about 4 inches apart because your leek at full maturity, when you want to harvest, it'll be about a 2-inch in diameter. So I want a 4-inch spacing. But for the most part, this is as far as I want to bury my actual plant. Now that we're done with our transplants, now we're going to move into seeds. Now, as far as seeds are concerned, for the most part, each and every package shows you and it tells you what spacing to use and how much cover area they're going to cover. So, in saying that, here, let's say we had, carrots. You take your seeds. All you do is a little simple trench. I like using my hands a lot. So you take your seeds, and of course, carrots grow only that big. So you may want to go with a 2-inch spacing or maybe 3-inch spacing. So you set your seeds every 2 to 3 inches apart. The last thing you want to do is go in there and just start pouring your seeds out, because as we saw back here earlier, they're just going to be fighting for each other and you're not going to have a real nice carrot. Okay? If you were planting, let's say, a bigger vegetable, let's say your beets, your red beets, your turnips, your onions, something that grows maybe anywhere from a tennis ball to a softball size, well, now you want for sure a 4-inch spacing, 5-inch spacing. So now, instead of doing your row, then what I like to do is I like to do my 4-inch spacing, and all your seeds basically have to go in from 1/4 to a 1/2 inch deep. That is it. Don't go any deeper than that, because then they'll struggle to get out. So, I mean, if you want to be absolutely positively sure that you do have a crop, you can take 2 of your seeds and drop them in the hole. Pressure, dirt, and you're done. And then your next line of vegetables would be 4 to 5 inches apart. Okay? Now, let's say you were planting some of your bigger stuff. Now, as far as the seeds is concerned, right now I have squash, but squash is not a fall crop. But just for the sake of demonstration, you take your seed, you imagine how big your squash plant is going to be, which is pretty big, and that's literally how far you want to space them apart, every 2 feet. I take a couple of seeds, I drop them in the hole, and just press it real lightly, and you're done. Now, the seeds that you would be using, of course, would be your broccoli seeds, your lettuce seeds, your cabbage seeds, and so forth, so on, for the fall. And that is basically it. As you're growing your garden, one of the things that we don't want to happen is when your plant is maturity, please take it out. One of the things that happen is, one, it starts to bolt, and it becomes an infestation and magnet of bugs. Here we have this plant that is just loaded with cucumber beetle. And basically what happens is, when it stops feeding in here, it's going to go into your neighbor's plot. So be sure to come in and remove all your diseased and dead plants. It doesn't take but a few seconds. Thank you for watching this video. Here you have the final raised bed garden. I hope this helps you out in maintaining and planting your all's raised bed. For now, thank you very much. This is Cruz Salinas, UTRGV in the Sarah Division. Happy growing.